What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and this is the greatest racing sim of all time, GTR 2. That may be my opinion, but I'm sticking to it regardless, because almost everyone who played this game back in the day will agree that it is pretty darn swell. So why exactly is this game so good? Is it nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses, or does it still hold up? As I had a fresh install of GTR 2 just working around for some odd reason, it's actually unrelated to this video, I decided, hey, you know what, I'll go ahead and screw around with this game that's now nearly 17 years old, with no mods, no upgrades, definitely not the way you should play this game here in the now, but just to see, I had to. And yeah, this game is still as awesome as it was in 2006, hiccups included. Most of those hiccups and hurdles are really just due to this being an old PC game. For example, getting my way too many USB inputs sorted to only send the steering wheel and the pedals to the game. It was one little small hurdle. Getting the game running happily because of administrator settings and the way Windows today handles things versus Windows XP way back when this game was new, and running as an admin, not running as an admin, and Steam and all that stuff, getting everything sorted. But a lot of this stuff was just small little issues. Set it up once and you're done. The biggest issue I had with this game from like a playability standpoint here in the now is just the fact that because this is an old game, it can't properly utilize your computer's resources, which means that racing in the rain at night is still a bit of a problem. Your frame rate go bye-bye, which it's really kind of hilarious because, I mean, computers nowadays are basically supercomputers of 16 years ago, and you still can't run everything full-on maxed out without worrying about your frame rate in these situations. But once the hurdles are cleared, the gameplay, getting the good, fun offline races, as great as ever. And with that, I want to talk about the things that make this game so legendary. First off, there's the gameplay. Feature-wise, GTR 2 had pretty much all the features you would want in a racing sim today. A 24-hour day-night cycle, mid-race saving, weather, otherwise known as rain, a rubbering in track that supposedly was there, although it never really made much of a difference to me. These were all features that were in GTR 2 way back when. Basically, the only thing that you're missing from modern titles is flat spots. Or I should say, missing out of the box originally is flat spots, because there is a mod for that. Then you also have the gameplay features themselves, such as a driving school that's designed to show you around the track in an easy environment to understand and learn, breaking things down section by section if you so choose. You then also have a championship mode where you can do a full-on FIA GT season, or do one of the many special challenges to unlock alternative track layouts. This is assuming that you don't do what we all did back in the day and cheat. The second pillar of GTR 2's greatness is its platform. Using ISI's platform as base, GTR 2 really benefited. GTR 2 is not a modding platform. It simply became one. That is a key distinction to make, because nowhere did Simbin actually set out to make this anything other than the FIA GT game that it brands itself as. However, they didn't disallow the game that was on a highly modifiable platform to be modified. While R-Factor really was the lead mod platform of its day, at the same time, because this game wasn't locked down and was on a very similar basic platform, R-Factor's success was also shared with GTR 2. Most of the high-quality tracks out there saw releases on both R-Factor and GTR 2, and many cars were converted both ways. Further, there were similarly plenty of updates to textures, physics, which were hotly debated back in the day, may I remind you, or if you did not know, we've always been complaining about physics in sim racing, sounds, AI improvements, and general game customizations just beyond headlining cars and tracks. I also have to mention, Simbin was incredibly smart to let Power and Glory render GT Legends obsolete rather than squash it. And they actually probably sold more copies of GT Legends in the end anyways, so win, and win. However, this isn't a video about GTR 2 mods, but it can't be ignored that one of the reasons that this game has had such a long-lasting impact is the fact that it was somewhat modifiable. Maybe not to the same degree that R-Factor 1 was, maybe not the same way that you look at Assetto Corsa today. However, it had plenty of third-party post-release community-created content that has gone on to make this game into something that wasn't even imaginable when this game released initially. And the last thing I want to go ahead and talk about here, and in my opinion most importantly, the cars. Despite covering the period equivalent of today's GT3 and GT4 series, there is a deep variety here with so much more depth. Let's just go ahead and start with the lower class, NGT, or GT2 as it was known at the time outside of FIA GT. Yawn. Upgraded Yawn, a car where you sit on the door sill, everyone's favorite headlights. The faster one with the better headlights. And then you get to the big boy cars, FIA GT, or GT1 everywhere else at the time. High-speed cornering? Yeah, we don't do that here. There is no replacement for displacement. The British version of Murica. Ferrari wishes it was ProDrive. I can't believe it's not Enzo. Flying Spaghetti Monster. You weren't going to use those rear tires anyways, were you? And lastly, this thing. It's just that good, that perfect. An obscenely fast front-engine Ferrari V12 powered GT car. I'm not even a Ferrari guy, but what more could anyone want than that? But wait, there's more. Because there's the secret spice, the Spa 24-hour Oddball cars. And in no particular order, Random Clown Shoe. Doing it for Dale. Whatever this horrifying abomination of a car is. This car that's lived rent-free in my head thanks to this game and Gran Turismo 3. Random Porsche Cup sighting. 996. Now with turbo! Epic cheater car. I've heard if you take the exhaust off, it sounds like an F1 car. The destroyer of AI. The coolest mid-engine Corvette. Any game that has a Morgan in it probably can't be that terrible, right? The downgrade was real. You had all these whack oddball cars just plopped into a game that already had a great, compelling car list from a racing point of view. While most of these bonus extra cars are slightly weird and don't really directly fit into the main classes, they still end up being great content in the end by way of mods. For example, the Elise and the Vertigo both had skin packs that turned them into cup cars, more or less. Of course, there's an inevitable Porsche Cup as well as a Mazda Cup way back in the day, because you know what? You just get a bunch of random skins all over the place and you throw them into the game and you like, have fun. And all of a sudden you go from like this one weird car that doesn't really fit in anywhere to, hey, this is fun, different, exciting experience. And then there's the other side of things. And maybe this is going to sound as if I'm an old man yelling at clouds, cars were cooler back then, you know, type thing, but this was a very different world than what it is in the modern world of racing, which meant that not only were cars sometimes 2, 3, 4 seconds off the pace in its own class, and we didn't complain about how the BOP was absolutely broken and horrendous, cars were different between the same car types. Things like multiple tire manufacturers, some cars had more powerful engines within the same type of cars. For example, the Force 1 Vipers here in GTR 2 actually have more power. You have different visuals and cockpit features and all these little touches that make a car more special, more unique than just, this is my preferred skin on this preferred GT3 car. It's also worth noting that these cars actually turned somewhat similar lap times to today's modern GT3 cars, although they had 100 more horsepower. The difference largely comes from the new cars having more downforce, better brakes, tires, electronics, which are frankly things that make the whole driving experience from a video game standpoint far less fun and exciting. I also really like how that all feeds back into the core gameplay itself. You know, if I want challenge, I simply pick a slower car in GTR 2 because that's an easy way to get it. If I want to be a driving god, I pick the BMS 550 because you're going to feel like a driving god driving that thing. When I want to go ahead and suffer, I take the 993 GT2 RS because that car is eternal suffering and just a terrible, terrible experience compared to the 550. But that's the whole point. The fact that it is terrible, the fact that it is slow, the fact that it is clearly 100% not competitive in the slightest is why it is fun, why is it enjoyable, and why it is exciting. And seriously, I really like the fact that you don't have to turn up the AI difficulty to the clearly defining the laws of physics setting to actually get a race as a moderately skillful driver. You have truly loads of different options, and they all feel different, they all feel unique, they bring something to the table, and they're not constrained into one small little box by BOP. Call me an old man yelling at clouds, but it's just a different experience that has been lost to the sands of time. For better and for worse. So wrapping it all up, GTR 2 would have been a good game if any one of these things were changed. However, all these years later now, the cutting edge of PC sim racing has well and truly surpassed GTR 2 and what was even conceivably possible back in this game's heyday. What's kept this game relevant and exciting and engaging is the fact that on its premise itself, it is exciting and engaging. It doesn't need to be something that it's not, because it is what it is, and what it is exciting. For example, when Papyrus was creating Grand Prix Legends, they went ahead and decided, hey, what would be a great time to make a racing sim? What would be exciting and compelling? In that case, they looked 30 years in the past to Formula 1 in the 1967 series. They chose that because it was the peak of the pre-winged Formula 1 cars. They chose that with the benefit of hindsight and looking back and deliberately select something, whereas Simbin really just lucked into it here with GTR 2. And you look at it, and yes, there is nostalgia, but this is the end of the line for GT racing. This is the end of the V12. This is the end of the V10. GT racing went from the big cars to now the sports cars that they are today. You know, Ferrari isn't racing the 812 or whatever it is that they got now. They're racing the 288. Because that's the sports car, not the GT car. And along the same way with sim racing itself, it's changed entirely, where we've gone away from these types of single season products, or 2-season products in the case of GTR 2, to now having random science experiments, as lots of people like to call them, and I'm definitely adopting that term on this channel here going forward, because you have lots of content from all over the place, but often it falls flat and falls short because you're not getting all of the smaller little details and the cool little stuff that makes it unique and special. When you get 3 or 4 different cars in a class, yeah, sure, it might effectively be enough, but your brain knows that you're missing all those other cool cars or all those other things that should be there instead, so they end up feeling like lackluster experiences no matter how good they are. They're always missing something. On top of that, they're always trying to do everything and everything all at once, which means that oftentimes they come across as, has anybody actually played with this car on your official content tracks to verify whether or not this stuff actually is working properly? I'm serious. The GTR 2, despite the little hiccups and issues with just being an old game and running like crap on a modern system, more or less, it's actually amazing how little frustration there was with just getting the game up and running and having fun, which was the whole point in the first place. And then you add in the fact that it is such a fun game to play anyways. As a sim racer, yeah, this game has aged very, very well, even if in some ways it obviously is horrendously dated. But that's just my opinion. So with that said, long live GTR 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.